Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Jets Afterburners podcast. Your host, New York Jets, Dan 16, and we have a special guest here. But before I get into that, changing it up a little bit. We're kind of diving headfirst into the world of changing the lives with a health-first approach here. Now, this series is about NFL fans on how they can cope with not having football on anymore until August. Now, I am no doctor or nutritionalist. I'd like to use this platform as an out-of-the-box health perspective in which you make the ultimate decision. You should always consult with your physician and do your own due diligence before going on any well-being journey. Now, with that, I bring on one of the OGs of this amazing life-changing style of eating, the extremely famous carnivore YouTube channel that has over 300,000 subscribers. It's called Homestead How. You'll find it in the description below. Now, with that, I bring on the one and only Kerry Mann. Dude, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dan. That's one heck of an introduction. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to chatting with you.
Well, you fully deserve that. Again, you have been very instrumental to me because I came across probably your channel about maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And I wasn't convinced. I was like, nah, this way of eating, it goes against the grain. Only eating meat? Nah, hold on. I need my vegetables. I need my fruits. And then, I'm one of those where I dig deep and I start reading even more books. And I went back to like maybe again, like 1800s, 1600s, no electricity, no nothing. You have all these hunters and gatherers. These guys weren't eating fruit or vegetables in the wintertime. They couldn't. They only ate meat and they didn't die. Kerry, how did you start this? How did you go into the carnivore lifestyle?
Yeah, well, for me, it was out of desperation. I was so sick of being sick. I had multiple health issues. The big one being just horrible depression and anxiety for 10 or 15 years. I was on every medication. Literally, I don't know if I'm exaggerating there. I tried everything. They would put me on an antidepressant medication. They'd say it's going to take 3 months before we know if it'll work or not. It didn't work. And then they would up the dosage and change the dosage. And I did that for 10 or 15 years. I also had IBS, kidney stones, had my gallbladder removed. My stomach just always hurt most of my adult life. Every time I'd eat, gurgling, bubbling, and hurting all of the time. I had my gallbladder removed. It was kind of borderline, and they're like, we could pull that thing out. Maybe it'll help you. I'm like, I want any sort of relief. Take the gallbladder out. I started snoring a couple of years ago. I had to wear one of those ridiculous CPAP machines where I literally stopped breathing throughout the night. And a couple of years ago, I was at home and I was depressed, and my wife and I have triplets plus one. Biggest blessing of my life, having our girls. But after they were born, that was when a lot of my health issues just started to cascade and my medications started to cascade. And when I needed to be a healthy, fit, energetic dad to try to take care of triplets, which is a pretty big undertaking, I was just getting sicker and sicker, and that just kept progressing. And so about 7 or 8 years ago, I was at home, depressed on the couch, and I went to stand up, and my lips started drooping, and I got confused, and I couldn't find my words. My wife was like, what is going on? She called 911. I went to the hospital, spent 5 days there in the stroke unit, and I was diagnosed with a TIA mini stroke. And this was at about age 36, 37. They did a bunch of tests on me, and they diagnosed me with congestive heart failure, which basically means my heart can't keep up with the needs of my body. And I had symptoms of that too for years. Every time I'd stand up, I'd get dizzy. Anytime I try to do any sort of work, I'd always be gung-ho here. We live on a homestead. Let's go cut down a tree for some firewood. I'd get out the chainsaw, I'd walk out into the woods, and I'd be huffing and puffing for air and losing my breath. So I was sick of being sick. And then one day I came across a story, and it was a YouTube video from a man named Dante Ferrigno, who you've had on your show. And his story was incredible. And he had many of the same health issues that I had. And he was so passionate about this. And when I watched his video, he said he's just going to eat meat and nothing else. And I thought that's absolutely insane. You can't do that. You're going to die. You're going to have a heart attack. I have congestive heart failure. I can't do that. I'm going to clog my arteries. This guy's nuts. However, the only thing I ever had success with all of those years of suffering was a ketogenic diet. I dipped my toes in. I did it for a while. I had some success, and then I gained all the weight back. And I yo-yoed for probably 10 or 15 years. But when I heard Dante talking about carnivore, I realized this is just a strict ketogenic diet. Like, from a science perspective, this should certainly work. It should work better than keto. It's just an extreme keto diet. And then I started learning more, like you mentioned, hunters and gatherers. We've been eating meat since the start of time. If you look around in the world right now, some of the countries that eat the most meat are they live the longest. Hong Kong is one of the big ones. You hear this thing about the blue zones, and we can get into all of that. There's so much misinformation there, but Hong Kong has the highest meat consumption per capita, and they live the longest of anyone. And then there's all sorts of hunters and gatherers. Then I started learning, like, babies are born into ketosis, and they're only kicked out of ketosis when we start giving them horrible formula and sugar and carbs that they weren't intended to eat. And so I started learning all these things. Then I started hearing from these doctors. After I watched Dante, I found Dr. Barry. I went down the rabbit hole. I watched probably 1,000 of his videos. Like, I did not stop watching his videos. I kept trying to figure out, what is this guy's angle? What is his scam? What is he trying to sell me? Because frankly, every doctor that I've ever encountered before that hurt me. They didn't help me. They put me on medication that didn't treat the root cause of the problem. I got sicker, and then I needed more medication to help with the side effects from the new medication, and it just cascaded. So I had no trust for doctors. But when I watched Dr. Barry videos, I'm like, wait a minute. After 1,000 videos, I'm like, this guy's not even selling anything. Like, I thought there'd be some pitch at the end. I'm like, he's already told me all this information for free. And then I started seeing other doctors. I saw Dr. Jordan Peterson on Joe Rogan, and he stopped snoring the first week on carnivore. He said that he got off all of his antidepressant medications, and he was off them for a year. When I heard him say that, I'm like, this is crazy. This requires some more investigation. Like, I can't just be kind of arrogant and be like, oh, whatever, he's crazy. This guy's crazy. I heard Dr. Philip Ovadia, a heart surgeon. He's performed 3,000 heart surgeries. He's been eating carnivore for like 10 or 15 years. Started hearing all these doctors, brain surgeons, heart surgeons that are doing this. And so, long story short, I said, I'm sick of being sick. I'm desperate. I'm literally dying a slow death here. I'm willing to try anything. And I'm going to just do an elimination diet for 30 days. That's how I told myself, Dan, that I'm going to do this, because I'm going to wrap my brain around eating meat for 30 days. But I could wrap my brain around not eating poisons, toxins, food dyes, high fructose corn syrup, all this crazy science experiments we call a standard American diet. I mean, you look at half the ingredients in the grocery stores, and you can't pronounce half of the items in there. Chemicals. It's crazy, the stuff we're doing. I said, I'm going to do it for 30 days. And that's going to be it. And on day 31, I'm going to go back to eating in moderation. That's what I told myself. But oh my goodness, I started feeling incredible so quickly on carnivore. I stopped snoring the second day on carnivore. People say I'm lying. They say that's crazy. It's the truth. Like, Dr. Jordan Peterson said he stopped snoring the first week on carnivore. And I've seen there's so many people that have done the same. It was just inflammation. I was eating highly inflammatory food. It was inflaming my tongue, my airway. It was causing me to snore. And the majority of people out there that are listening right now, if you snore or have a CPAP machine, it's probably just inflammation from the foods you're eating.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's not. I thought it was.
You froze there. Sorry, Kerry.
Oh, sorry. Am I back now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so
No,
sorry. I tend to go on a tangent, but that's kind of my story. That's how I found carnivore.
I love it. I mean, you nailed it on so many aspects. To me, the energy. We draw a little bit of a parallel there with family. You know, at age 20, I was vibrant, no issues, no problem. Just, working out, just doing things. I was engaged. Then I had my second daughter, and I fell into a vortex of just, there's so many problems here that, like, life is just right on my shoulders. And my go-to was eating. And it wasn't your typical, yes, we all call it the standard American diet, but this is not normal, eating like 2 sleeves of Oreos. eating pizza that's a normal person would eat maybe one. No, I'm eating 6. And that's just to get the chemicals within my body to that certain high. It's a high. It's,
Yeah.
I've never done drugs ever in my life. Thank God. But the more I fell into this whirlpool of sugar and high fructose and drinking grape soda. Yeah, because, you got to have some fruit, right? And every time you need a higher threshold of sugar in order to get to that level. And all of a sudden, I'm missing these amazing moments in life with my kids growing and me there. And I'm playing with them and I'm dozing off. What? And I'm looking in the mirror. I'm like, there's something wrong. Why am I agitated so much? And that was one part of your story as well that I was, I was listening, that you were agitated, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was frustrated, agitated, and then it just turned to hopelessness because I kept trying more and more things. But what you described there is, I think, great for your audience to hear, because who here listening to this hasn't experienced brain fog or fatigue? It's rampant right now. And the thing that people that are listening to this should understand is, you watching this realize you have brain fog right now. This is the extent of the brain fog you realize. This is the reality of your brain fog. It's way worse than you realize. You can't see that fog until you get out of it. It's like you're going around your entire life and you're wearing glasses that are foggy. That becomes your new normal after years and years of decades of looking through that foggy lens. Once that clears up, oh my goodness, is it crazy? The cognitive ability and just reading a book, listening to a conversation, just being able to pay attention. I used to stutter and stammer, and I'd say to my wife, like, with the dishwasher, the turning water thingy, like I couldn't find just simple words.
Yeah.
It was like I was walking around as a stroke victim most of my life with that brain fog. And that is one of the most incredible things on carnivore. Besides all of these other health issues, I overcame my depression and anxiety, which battled for 15 years on every medication. I would have given anything in the world to overcome that. I've talked to people with Parkinson's, people that have overcome type 2 diabetes. Some of the stories are just crazy, but almost every one of them has that similar theme of overcoming brain fog and getting that clarity and getting that energy back. And you have it now, Dan. I have it now. You look around in the world, though, the majority of people are walking around in that brain fog stupor, just barely getting by. They love their kids. They want to do stuff with their family, but they go home and they plop down on the couch because they're too tired to do anything. That is 100% from the foods they're eating. And a lot of people don't realize that. And the sugar that you mentioned, you said you've never done any drugs. Got to correct you a little bit. I don't know if you're probably correct, but I consider sugar a drug. And I only after I started doing carnivore. I don't know how it isn't. It's just that we've normalized it and grandma gives it to us and we have it at every holiday. But sugar lights up the brain on an MRI just like cocaine does. Mm-hmm. It's highly addictive. It's totally detrimental to our health. It causes brain fog. Every single disease, like chronic inflammation, you end up with heart disease. It's because your blood vessels are inflamed from consuming sugar or carbohydrates that convert to glucose, which is basically the same thing in our blood. So that was one of my big realizations. Like we were talking about how carnivore sounded so crazy at first, and it did to me too. And most of the people listening to this are going to think we're crazy and carnivore is crazy. But if you think about it this way, given the 60,000 options in the grocery store right now, most of them have sugar in them, almost all of them. Sugar has 200 different names. Most of them have food dyes, seed oils, all this crazy ingredients. The cleanest, most natural food you can eat right now at this very moment, 2025, is that what year we're at, is meat. There's nothing cleaner than meat, and I will debate anyone on that. And some people will say, yeah, but Kerry, what about vegetables? What about fruit? Fruit and vegetables have been perverted by man over and over again. Even if you go and get clean organic kale, 60% of that has glyphosate on it, which is an antibiotic. Almost all the fruit and vegetables you get right now are riddled with pesticides. And then people go and they wash them off under their sink. Well, they're out there in a field with rain pouring on them, and those pesticides still work. They're meant to work with water sprinkled over them. People are consuming these things in our guts are just completely ruined. We end up with leaky gut, weakened immune systems, depression, anxiety. So fruits and vegetables are, of course, 1,000 times better than donuts, Twinkies, and pizza, but they're still detrimental to our health, and they get a complete pass by so many people. But meat, even if I'm eating a cow that ate some grass that had glyphosate on it, by the time it goes through its multi-chambered stomach, it's a ruminant animal. That meat that you end up eating afterwards is the cleanest you can eat. No glyphosate, no pesticides, none of this other garbage. So it's the most natural thing we can eat. And when you rephrase it and think about it that way, how can eating the most natural thing on the planet possibly be not good for us? You know, carnivore sounds crazy, but when you rephrase it that way, I think it makes a lot more sense.
100%. And again, with vegetables and fruits, if we're talking about 100 years ago, to me, it was healthy. 100 years ago. Yeah. Now, I remember growing up, and when, again, my parents would bring home a watermelon, I remember spitting. I remember going, because it was the seeds in there. It was the black seeds, you know, and you couldn't eat it without, you know, just chucking it out of your mouth. Now, it's sweeter, and there's no more black seeds. What the heck happened? And that's my favorite fruit. Like, I've tried every exotic fruit out there. Watermelon was my go-to. But I felt every time when I eat it now, well, I haven't eaten again since the summer, that I would go back and I would eat, you know, those huge rugby-style steroided watermelons. I would eat half of it straight up, just, you know, and I don't know. I know I had an addiction to food because when the kids were around, and I would be the first one to finish everything. And I would, so sadistic, I would look across the table and be like, "Are you done? Are you done?" "Yeah, I'm done." Like, I would Pac-Man that thing right up. And that's the main thing as well, right? Kind of like rewinding this is, it's about being present at the moment and enjoying the camaraderie of people, the experiences, and slowing down time. I think that's what has helped me so much, is that I'm able to focus a little bit better on the questions, on how I'm about to rebuttal. Reading. Dude, I have always struggled with reading because something would always bog me out. Like, I'm reading a chapter and then I'm like, "Oh, cool, cookies." And I would just walk out or be distracted. Now I'm just so focused. And that's the beauty of this whole entire thing. And I want to get into moderation. This has been one of the biggest lies out there. Moderation. A lot of people tuning in right now, like, well, yeah, you know, like, if you eat a little bit of vegetables here, a little bit of fruit here, a little bit of meat here, maybe some cake, you know, if you have that self-control, God bless you. My wife has that, Kerry. My wife is such a queen. I've studied her. Kerry, I'm like, I'm eating and she's halfway through and she's done. She puts her fork down. I'm like, "What, is something wrong with you?" She's like, "I'm done." I'm like, how are you done? I'm done. There's nothing on my plate. She's like, I'm full. Some people have that. You and I did not have that.
Right. And I get that comment when you start carnivore. Can't you just eat in moderation? God bless your wife. There's few people that can do that. I look around in the world right now. I'm filming this documentary now. I've talked to lots of doctors and experts, and a lot of them get into the stats. And you look around in the world right now, 70% of people are overweight. 7 out of 10. 9 out of 10 have poor metabolic health. We have children walking around with fatty liver disease for the first time in history. People you go to the grocery store, you see people in wheelchairs with their legs missing because they're having limbs amputated because they're addicted to the sugar. So I feel like the majority of humanity is more like you and me, can't moderate. And the thing is, why moderate? That's the question I have. People say moderate. Like, I could eat cardboard in moderation. Should I? Just because I can? There's no other species of animal on this planet. And there's millions of species, by the way. I was Googling this before. Like, how many species are there? They don't even know. There's so many. They just say there's millions of species on this planet, but every single species eats an intended diet, and it's like one or two things. Cow eats grass, koala bear eats eucalyptus. Every species eats one or two things. Every species is fine. A cow doesn't have to moderate and say, well, let's have a little bit of ice cream and let's have a little bit of fruit right now. Let's have a little bit. If the cow did that, it would look like humans. It would have patches of its fur missing, and it would be having trouble walking because it'd be all arthritic and inflamed. It's only humans with our big brains that feel like we need to eat this stuff in moderation. It's fine. Like, can you tolerate stuff in moderation is one thing. Should you tolerate stuff in moderation is another. The truth is, as crazy as this sounds, we've been eating meat for as long as we've been breathing air and drinking water. I learned that from Dr. Ken Berry. Is primarily what we've eaten since the start of time. And it's all we need. You do not need to supplement when you eat meat. If you eat like a fatty ribeye, for example, it has the proper proportion of fat to protein and all the vitamins and nutrients and minerals you need to survive. I'm coming up on 700 days now. I haven't had a single thing in moderation. It's just been meat and eggs, beef, butter, bacon, eggs. I haven't had any grains. I haven't had a single piece of fruit. I haven't had a single carbohydrate, none of that. So you don't need to eat in moderation. Some people make the excuse, why can't you just eat in moderation? And frankly, I think a lot of people that are saying that are the ones that are addicted to carbohydrates and they don't realize it. And when we talk about sugar and being addicted to sugar, I think a lot of people don't understand this if they're new to the space. Anything that breaks down in your blood to glucose. So carbohydrates, grains, rice, watermelon, those things break down in your blood as glucose. Your blood doesn't know if that's glucose from a candy bar or from an apple. But what it does know is that about an hour or 2 hours later, you're jonesing for some more sugar, whether it's another watermelon or a candy bar or a muffin or whatever it may be, because you're addicted to that and it just keeps going and going. And when you're on carnivore, you're abstaining from that. So it's an addiction. I have no doubt the majority of humanity is addicted to carbohydrates. Everyone watching this that's just starting to think, oh, maybe I'm addicted. You shouldn't have any shame at all. I'm addicted. My wife's addicted. Everyone, the majority of humanity is addicted. This food has been engineered to be highly addictive. Your parents were addicted and it was normalized and they thought, well, it's fine. Here, have some candy, have some sugar. Every reward was this drug that we're addicted to. But there's no other addiction on the planet that someone would try to moderate. You wouldn't tell an alcoholic, why are you quitting alcohol? Just have a little bit. You wouldn't tell someone that just got over a cocaine addiction, well, it's Saturday, you did good all day, have a little bit of cocaine in moderation, you'll be fine. I can do it in moderation. Yeah, it's just crazy. One other thing I want to say real quick on the fruit, you mentioned the watermelon. It's so true. Changing, like no seeds anymore, sweeter. The other example is the apple. What's wrong with an apple? Apple's fine, right? An apple today is this big. An original apple was this big. It was a sour little crab apple, and man has perverted it and modified it and engineered it to be bigger and bigger and sweeter so that you bite into that apple now and it's just a rush of glucose to the blood. And then you wonder, why are we grazing all day as humans? Why am I hungry 2 hours later? You eat that apple 2 hours later, I gotta have a granola bar. I gotta have something. I'm so hungry. None of that on carnivore because you're completely abstaining from that addiction. And that is what you eat that, and then you become inflamed. And then you're walking around in inflammation and brain fog and fatigue, and your immune system's weakened. And you do that for a couple months, a couple of years, a couple of decades. You're walking around chronically inflamed. And what happens? You end up with cancer. You end up with type 2 diabetes. You end up with heart disease. All of those things are from inflammation, not carnivore. People that hear you talk about carnivore, they're probably like, oh, you're going to have a heart attack. I'm so worried about you. I know so many people that have passed away from heart disease or strokes in my family. None of them were eating carnivore. They were eating the standard American diet. Like everyone that is scared about carnivore is eating anyway. Everyone that's scared about carnivore should be absolutely terrified about walking around chronically, systemically inflamed. Do some research on it. Don't take my word for it. That's what causes cancer. That's what causes dementia, Alzheimer's, strokes, all of those things. It's inflammation. That's what people should be worried about, not about eating carnivore.
Great points on that. And, as I was diving into even further diets and all these surgical procedures and pharmaceutical companies, you start talking to so many different people and, as soon as you start telling them, hey, I'm on carnivore. Oh my God. How many times a day do you eat? I kid you not. Before carnivore, I was eating probably maybe 8 times. And I wasn't even having breakfast. Wasn't even having that. It's when I got home, then in dinner time, and then once everyone went to bed, I would munch. And there was no stop. Again, I'm on the couch. Everyone's sleeping. My wife is doing all the work. Not fair at all. Not fair. And I'm eating Doritos, Oreos, Chips Ahoy, you name it, dunking it in milk and just laying there. Now I fast and whoa, taboo. You can't fast. That's not good for you. You can't be in a prolonged time of not eating.
Right.
How dare you? How dare you? But there's a caveat to this. If you had gastric bypass and you see a person lose so much weight, because I've had friends and, not to shame them. It's not about that. It's about, wow, hey, Greg, whatever the case is, you lost so much weight. Yeah, because, I'm not hungry anymore. Wait a minute. So you don't eat? No, I don't eat. I'm just not hungry. Oh, wow. No one gives you a hard time like when you don't eat? No, they know that now my little lining here is small. All right. Other friend. Hey, Jennifer, what's going on? Oh, what's going on? Wow, you look really thin. What? Oh, I'm doing the Ozempic, this thing. Oh, wow. What's new? Well, I'm not hungry. So what do you do when you're not hungry? I fast. I don't eat. Huh. No one gives you a hard time? No. They know that I'm on this Wegovy thing. I'm on that. Oh, okay. So it's okay for the public to normalize you not eating when you're under those kind of circumstances. But when you yourself have this epiphany and do your own research, you go through this rabbit hole and you're just eating once a day and getting all your vitamins, all your nutrition, powerhouse nutrients, they demonize it. What's going on here, Kerry?
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And when you start going down carnivore, you start realizing how everything is like an inverted reality. Everything is the opposite. Fasting, humans have fasted since the start of time. All religions, like this is the thing, Dan. This is what's going on. So I've used this example before, but imagine this little piece of paper. It's a little sliver of time, right? Yep. That is the last 100 years or so, the standard American diet, people eating seed oils and food dyes and all this food in 3, 4, 5, 8 meals a day. This whole thing, imagine a whole football field. This is a good analogy for the Jets afterburners here. A whole football field. Humans were eating like Dan and I were. They were fasting, hunters and gatherers. They'd eat meat. Maybe they'd have a handful of berries seasonally in the middle of summer. I'm here in the woods in Wisconsin. We get berries maybe 2 weeks out of the year. There's no other fruit in the woods out there. There's animals that you would hunt. Through that whole football field, if you guys imagine that whole football field, people were eating like we're eating. It's just at the very edge, one last blade of grass at the 1 yard line. That is what we're doing right now. And we're so myopic as humans. We look at that and think, well, this is just the way things have always been. And anything deviating from that is just crazy and normal, like fasting. The way it's always been is we've been eating 3, 5, 8 meals a day. That is abnormal throughout the history of time. That is insane. Fasting's not insane. We've been fasting since the start of time. All sorts of religions fast. There's all sorts of science on fasting. Your body goes into autophagy. It kills off the bad cells, probably adds years to your life, probably decreases the odds of you getting cancer because it's recycling those old cells when you go into autophagy. It is natural. That is the thing with carnivore. Eating meat is natural. Fasting is natural, but it seems abnormal. What should seem abnormal to the people that think fasting is crazy is the fact that we're grazing as humans on 8 meals a day. We think that's normal. There's no other species that's sitting here struggling like, what am I going to eat next? What am I going to do next? I got to find that next meal. I got to find that next fix. That's what's truly crazy.
That's insane that you bring that up because it's so true. Again, it depends on anyone's vocation. I know when I used to work at a pizzeria or at an office, whatever the case was, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. And the topic of conversation was, what are you guys having for lunch? Hold on a second. We got 3 hours left. I'm focused on the task at hand. Well, we're having some Chinese. You guys having some pizza? I can put the order in now. Wait. Yes, I'll have pizza. So now I'm constant. Now we're eating the pizza, and they're like, after work, we're gonna grab some beer. Oh, yeah, we're gonna get some wings because you need the protein. It's doused in buffalo sauce, and again, it's spicy. It's great. This is something else I want to talk about. Since being on this, I know it's going to be a little TMI to people, but I got no more gas. I got none of that. Nothing. I go maybe to the restroom once a day, if that, and it's just my mind is occupied on other things like being at home or being in my job, or again, attending personal things. And I'm super focused. I got to be honest. Last week, did my taxes. I'm there with my accountant. And what do you mean? What do you mean about those numbers? I didn't do this. Oh, yes, I did do that. And she's like, number one, you look amazing. How much weight did you lose? I'm like, I lost over 35 pounds. And Kerry, I'm sorry. If you think you go on tangents, dude, I go into like the mathematics of tangents, dude. They're like, what happened? And I tell them, and every year, starting of January, for the past 15 years, Kerry, I kid you not, my starting weight is 240 to 245, always. And then I do like a challenge, right? Like a nutritional challenge, and it takes like 12 weeks. I lose maybe 20 pounds, and then I hit a plateau. I'm kind of good for the summer, but still that gut. And, I'm looking in the mirror. I wish I could do this. This has been the lightest I have ever been in probably 23 years. I'm 43 since I was 20. I entered this year at about 210. Right now I'm at 205. I feel limber. I run like crazy. I'm there. I'm physically fit. That's where I wanted to pick your brain, Kerry, before going on this. That bodily challenge. How did you overcome it, and how have you sustained this?
Yeah, I struggled with my weight for years and years. Like I said, I did a ketogenic diet, had some success, but then I gained it all back. Carnivore was the most natural thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just ate meat, and the thing that was crazy, like when I started Dan Carnivore, I got a lot of eye rolling. Oh gosh, here he goes again, another diet. He's done the keto diet. He's done the Weight Watchers, plant-based, 1 meal a day. Here's another big miracle thing he's trying. And I'm like, they've got a point. But then after doing carnivore for a while, I realized, no, this is different. This is natural. I'm not forcing myself. When I was doing keto, I'm sitting there trying to calculate carbs and make deals with the devil. Oh, I could have a handful of berries this morning, and then I'd eat that, and then I'd be jonesing for more sugar. Every other thing, it felt like I was starving myself or forcing myself, and it never felt sustainable. Carnivore is just natural. Like, I don't think about it. Now, it's hard adapting from a standard American diet, getting into carnivore. You got to get over the sugar addiction.
Mm-hmm.
You may end up with keto flu. You may end up with cravings. That part is hard. But once you're past that, carnivore is the easiest, most natural thing in the world. I don't even think about it. Like, sometimes I have to remind myself to eat.
Right.
And for me, the weight just started coming off. I'm down 100 pounds since my heaviest. My heaviest was 262. I was at a doctor's appointment. My lightest, I did some fasting at one point. I was down to 157. But right now I'm running right around 160, 170. So about 100 pounds down. And in terms of maintaining it, I just eat carnivore. Like, I don't, and it's crazy because I've done some fasts and I've done some things where you think the weight would fluctuate or whatever, but it just, you get to almost this natural point and your body just kind of stays there. It's the easiest, most natural thing in the world for me. Like, I don't even think about it anymore.
Dude, you said something on one of your videos that had me dying, but it was so true. You said, you never see a fat deer out there. And I started to think, I'm like, I've never seen like an obese deer, unless it's pregnant, even pregnancy. Like they're still fit. Like you don't look at one and like, there's definitely something wrong with his thyroid. Like you
Right.
don't think about these things, but it's so true. But we're okay with it now. And again, we see police officers, firefighters, and God bless them. These are people that have to be in tip-top shape, and it's the meals, it's the food, and the stress, in the stress eating that dives us into this. And that's the main problem here, are all these outside influences where we're like, okay, you know what? My job is so overwhelming, and the go-to is the food, is right away the sugars, the sodas and whatnot. And that to me is such a red flag. You want to have someone in tip-top shape taking care of you, and I believe it was, I think it was Dr. Ken Berry that stated, I don't know if he was on your show, that said, you don't want to go to a mechanic that has his front yard full of cars that won't start. You always want to look up to the next individual that's going to be helping you to kind of represent what they're all about. And being into this, I want to always represent to my family, hey, look, there's dad, there's my husband. That dude is practicing what he preaches. And this kind of segues to all of these individuals that you've had on your show. I want to know more about your documentary.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff, Dan. What you just said there is something that's really been resonating with me recently. I was very fortunate. A couple weeks ago, I interviewed Dr. Sean Baker.
Oof.
And as we were ending the interview, I just said, is there anything else you want to mention before we wrap up? And he thought about it for a second. He looked at the camera and he said, be an example to your family. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. But since then, I haven't been able to get that out of my head. And then I was thinking, what kind of example was I to my family when I was 100 pounds heavier on the couch? I should have been outside kicking the ball around, going to their games, being a present father for them in the very limited time that we have with our children. And I wasn't there for them. And now on Carnivore, it's completely changed. Like I'm going to the gym with them. We're spending time together. My whole family's doing Carnivore now. My triplets are all Carnivore. My wife is, my older daughter is. All 6 of us are eating Carnivore now. But I also heard one other quote that was really powerful to me. And it said something like, if you're willing to die for your family, then you should be willing to get healthy for them too.
Wow. Wow. That blows me away, man.
Yeah. So who watching here wouldn't be willing to die for their family? Everyone would answer that. So why wouldn't you be willing to get healthy for them? It's so hard with the food addiction. You were touching on this earlier. And when you have any addiction, it steals your free will, whether you believe it or not. If you're addicted to alcohol or cocaine or drugs or sugar, it is stealing your free will because you're doing what Dan said earlier. What are we going to eat next? What are we going to do next? Food, food, food. Drug, drug, drug. That's all you're thinking about, is that addiction over and over again. And you have hopes and dreams and you want to go after your goals, but you get home and you plop down on the couch, or you go out to eat, or you go do this, or you go do that instead, because that addiction is stealing your free will. There's some people that hear that, Dan, and they're like, well, whatever. I just enjoy my food too much. But what really, really bothered me was when I realized that big food and big pharma, they're making billions and billions of dollars, and their wallet's getting thicker and thicker at the expense of my health and the health of my children. That should piss everyone off. Like everyone should be fired up about that.
That's right.
And when you talk to people, it's like, oh, I like my food. It's not that big of a deal. When you really start thinking of it that way and opening your eyes, that was one thing that really changed me. But in terms of the documentary, yeah. So I had my story. I did a YouTube video on day 30. My wife and I are homesteaders. We got chickens and goats. We've been doing homesteading YouTube videos for 10 years now.
Wow. All
about chickens and goats and running a homestead and building greenhouses and stuff like that. But on day 30, I'm like, this is incredible. This is incredible. Like, I feel so good. The weight's coming off. And I started hearing more stories from other people. on YouTube that are saying like they're overcoming their depression. And that was the big thing for me, the depression. It was so horrible for so long. But in my head, I'm like, this is something wrong. That's what the doctors told me. There's something wrong with you. You have a chemical imbalance in your brain. You have to take this medication. There's nothing else you can do about it. Never in a million years did I think that was my nutrition. And so when I learned that, I'm like, I got to do a video on this. So I did a 30-day update on YouTube, and it went nuts. And a whole bunch of people, 60, 70, 80-year-olds were commenting like, I overcame my depression too. I overcame my type 2 diabetes. I lost 100 pounds. Like story after story started flooding in. And I said, why isn't there a documentary on this? Like there's some good docs on keto, but there was nothing on carnivore. And very naively, on day 67, it's on a YouTube video. My daughter and I were like, we should do a documentary on the carnivore diet. How hard could that be? And we announced it. We set up a GoFundMe. And with this crazy carnivore energy I have, I just went 1,000% forward. Like we did a 24-hour live stream to raise money so that we could buy a Netflix approved camera, because I want to get this in front of millions of people. That was my goal. I don't want to get famous. I don't want to make a penny off of this. I want people to know that are hopelessly depressed that there's another answer out there. There's another tool in the toolbox that you maybe haven't considered. And I want to get the word out to as many people as possible. So in my head, I'm like, Netflix is like one of the biggest streaming services. If we could get a documentary on Netflix, well, then I went down the rabbit hole. We got to have a Netflix approved camera. You got to do it to this quality. And we did a 24-hour carnivore live stream. Stayed awake for 24 hours interviewing individuals and doctors to raise funds for this documentary. We raised some funds. And then I flew out to Alaska. I met a man named Bill Knott. He's 700 pounds, stuck in his house for 4 years, hopelessly depressed. He was the first person we filmed. And long story short, the premise of the documentary is let's follow around several individuals for 1 year that have different health issues. They're not just doing this to lose a couple pounds. It's serious health issues, Parkinson's, depression, type 2 diabetes. And let's just show the truth. What happens after 1 year on carnivore? So we have subsequently filmed 45 people. Now, not all of them for 1 year. The big main characters we did for 1 year. And then the others, many of them have already surpassed 1 year. We have a woman in our documentary, Maggie. She's 83. She's been eating carnivore for 65 years. Wow. She's absolutely jacked. We got a famous picture of her flexing her triple biceps. Like her hair is fully blonde, never taken any medication, never been sick. She's absolutely thriving at 83 years old. So we filmed her and many other individuals, and we're on the home stretch now. We have about 5 more interviews to go to be finished with the main documentary. However, there's so many incredible stories. We couldn't do it justice in a 90-minute documentary. So we're doing a series as well called It's Healing Humanity series, where there'll be individual episodes. So Dan, if you have a loved one that's suffering from depression or type 2 diabetes, you'll be able to say, here, go check this Healing Humanity episode out. All on diabetes, with a diabetes doctor, experts, and then individuals that overcame diabetes. The main thing for me was, I don't believe you can change anyone. You probably have loved ones, Dan, that you just want to like wring their neck, like just eat carnivore. It'll save your life. Like you're so sick right now, they won't listen to you. However, if they see a story that can inspire them, that can change people. Stories can inspire people to want to change themselves where you can't change other people. And I learned that on YouTube. My whole story, my whole reason I'm here right now was because Dante shared his story, which was incredibly inspiring to me. If a doctor just said do this, or any other person said do this, I'm not listening to it. But I saw Dante's example. So that's the premise of the documentary is let's just put these real true stories out there, and then people can hopefully be inspired by them and maybe change their lives forever, like it did for me and so many others.
I hear that, man. And, I've learned that in the past year, you cannot change people, but you can absolutely influence them by your actions. And that's the amazing part of this is that it's not just the weight. It also helps about your mental health awareness. I've been positive since I was born, but this has elevated me to a different level. Like, I write all of these messages down. I listen to Les Brown, Tony Robbins, the list goes on. I'm reading Atomic Habits, all of these inspirational kind of literature in which I need to surround myself with out of the box thinkers. And I remember one of these speakers, he said, if you're the smartest one out of your friends, get new friends, because you can't be on a high pedestal. You need to always be humbled and willing to evolve. And again, fill your day with encouragement, with faith, with courage, being fearlessness, with goals, with positive rebuttals. I think that is the hook right there. When you hear things like, oh, I suffer from depression. Oh yeah, I knew you had that. What about, is there anything I can do to help? Because I can. Be that bridge. Be that openness, and kind of allow yourself to help others all around you. And it starts sometimes with even like carnivore, like the way how we eat, and not being stuck in anger. It happens to us all the time, right? Like um, something small kind of breaks our realm of normality, and we just start flipping out. I've noticed that if I'm angry, I'm going to harness it. I'm going to harness it and use it to achieve either my goal or the person that I'm not seeing eye to eye with, and building relationships to the point where I need to learn, and maybe I could showcase my expertise through my way of being. And I think that's the beauty of this whole thing, just tying these loose ends together. Kerry, you have been so influential to me. Just like I don't know if I said this at the beginning. What Dante Ferrigno was to you, you have been to me, because there are so many lines that I could check off that you went through, and I'm just sitting back watching Seinfeld, episodes that I've watched so many times. And then I'm like, all right, you know what? Let's see what else is on. I came across your channel. I'm like, this guy looks familiar. Right. And I never saw you before, ever in my life. And as you're going through your journey, I'm like, I know who this guy looks like. This guy looks like me. Holy smokes. I never thought that I had anxiety. I never thought that I had depression. And when you were talking about trying to find the words when you're talking to your wife, and that was me. I couldn't flip through the mental Rolodex. Now I can. Like, this is the word that I need. It's right, rapid fire. And that's where I want to use this platform, just like you're using yours, to get this word out there to all the football fans or whatever other sport fans that you are. If you can invest so many weeks onto a team and players, millionaires, then let's be honest, they don't care about you. You go into the hospital, into the emergency room, you're not going to have Aaron Rodgers walk through that door and say, hey, are you okay? No, this is your opportunity right now. It's February 2025. Utilize the next 17 weeks to change your life. Kerry, you are amazing, dude. Keep knocking it out of the park. Keep slaying it. And for those that don't know, where can they find you?
Oh, thank you so much, Dan, for all your nice words. I really appreciate it. People can find me. My YouTube channel is Homestead How, even though it's pretty much just carnivore content at this point. And the documentary is Healing Humanity, healinghumanity.movie. You can go and learn more there. And we're still taking more stories, by the way. So if individuals are interested in sharing, like I said, we're doing that series forever. So more and more stories keep coming out of the woodwork. So I really appreciate you having me on, Dan. And I just want to say one last thing. Thank you for what you're doing too, because now you're going to inspire other people. That ripple effect is amazing. And the other thing I'm excited for you, Dan, is it just gets better and better. You're feeling incredible right now. Someone told me this early on in my carnivore journey. I'm like, they're hyping this thing up. It gets better and better and better. Our brains were damaged with that constant chronic inflammation. That went away. And now, Dan, you're starting to do things like read Atomic Habits, and you're starting to realize you have more gratitude, and you're starting to be more stoic, and all these things are happening because you've healed your brain. Once you heal your brain, you can kind of elevate it to the next level. And that's how all of humanity would be if they weren't chronically inflamed from the foods they're eating. But I'm excited for you because it gets better and better and better the longer you go. So,
dude, giving me goosebumps, and feathers are coming out of, the sleeve that I have. I mean, wow, what, like, the positive words that just came out of your mouth, man. I appreciate you, man. And just keep rocking. Don't stop doing what you're doing. I did want to touch on one more thing before we leave, is the electrolytes. I know a lot of people that are thinking about this, and they're like, you know what, am I only getting my energy from meat, salt? Is there anything else that we have to think about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So some people will say, if carnivore is so perfect, why do a lot of people need to have electrolytes? And the reason is because the world has changed. Throughout history, man would drink puddle water that's got magnesium in it. Nowadays, the water we drink, the food that we eat, it's deficient in magnesium because the water, for example, is purified and filtered, and then that water is given to the animals. So there's certain things that used to be prevalent for humans since the start of time that man has changed, and they're not there anymore. So electrolytes are recommended for a lot of people. Now, me on carnivore, for the majority of my carnivore journey, didn't use too many electrolytes. When I first started, I did. And now later in my journey, more recently, I'm working out more, so I will take them sometimes. There's different electrolytes, like Element is a big one. Keto Chow Drops is one Dr. Barry mentioned. The Keto Chow Drops are nice. You could just drip them into your water. All these are available on Amazon. But those are things I use. And it's interesting. Like, I don't know. I mentioned all of my health issues, including my congestive heart failure. I don't know if I mentioned this real quick, but that's completely reversed on carnivore. After 1 year on carnivore, my congestive heart failure, which I was told was chronic and would never change, completely reversed. And I had a lifelong irregular heartbeat since birth. That went away. After 1 year on carnivore, I went to the cardiologist, and it's going to be in our documentary. I've shared all of my medical records on my YouTube channel because people are like, that's impossible. You can't reverse congestive heart failure. I believe that's because I'm eating a proper human diet. I believe it's mainly because I'm in ketosis. The heart performs much more efficiently in ketosis, but it also may be due to electrolytes as well. There's a lot of things that happen with the heart with electrolytes. If you're deficient in certain things, some people might get a rapid heartbeat if you have too many. So that might be another thing that plays into it. In my mind, some of this gets complicated when we're talking about electrolytes and magnesium and potassium and these different sodium, these different things. But then I like to just simplify it. What is most natural? Most natural throughout time, we would have had magnesium and sodium and these electrolytes in our food. But since the world has changed, they're not in there. So for that reason, it does help to supplement for quite a few people on carnivore.
Wow. You know what? I got 7 more minutes with you. I want to just juice this out, man.
Yeah.
And I do apologize. So there was something that you were talking about before where, family members would be like, "Oh, you're on keto. Oh, you're doing the Weight Watchers." And it's like, sorry for trying to better my health. I'm sorry. Because I went through that, right? With keto, and keto always worked for me, but I always felt like I would backslide all the time because I'm like, all right, as a treat, I'll have a piece of cake. And again, like you had said before, and it's so true, my body, because I'm addicted to sugar, cannot differentiate between an apple and a candy bar. It doesn't. My body breaks it down, and all of a sudden, I'm back at the drug dealer, which is called my refrigerator. I open the door, and the guy's like, "Hey, welcome back," and I'm paying with my health. That's the problem. And, there is a life journey here. And I've noticed that once you start this carnivore diet, you start getting healthier and healthier, and there's so much inflammation. And that's the crazy part. It takes you so long to get these chronic issues. It doesn't happen in a year. It doesn't happen in 2 years. And the reverse is the same. It's going to take you some time to reverse all this inflammation. So it's not just 3 months and you're done. You got to, and that's the beauty of this. It continues to make you disciplined throughout this practice. It continues to make you focused and driven when you're on this kind of diet where you're just focused on life. Like, I just started working out again, and I'm just there, like, just documenting everything. And I'm just in a state of, wow, like, God has answered my prayers at this point. because I wanted to look good. I wanted to feel right on point, and I am, thanks to people like you, Kerry.
Oh, that's incredible. I appreciate it. Yeah, the whole keto thing, keto's great. A lot of people find carnivore through keto, but the biggest warning I have for people on keto is just what you had, Dan. I had the same thing, and so many people did. They get so close, but you're still trying to moderate that addiction. And it wasn't until I started carnivore that I realized that. I was like, wait a minute, I'm addicted, and I was trying to moderate that thing the whole time. It's like heartbreaking too. I remember once on keto, I lost like 60 pounds. I was so happy. My wife she lost a bunch of weight. We started exercising. We're like, never again will I gain this weight back. 4 months later, gained it all back in like another 20 pounds. And it was so hard to lose that weight. Like, it was so depressing to gain all that back. So much shame and failure. And then you do it over and over again on keto because you're trying to moderate that. So I always encourage people. That was the biggest realization I had, is that whole addiction. And the other thing that you're saying in terms of the energy you have now and you're exercising, that's wonderful. That is one of the big things I realized too. Before this, when you were eating 8 meals a day, it requires an incredible amount of energy for your digestive system to process a sleeve of Oreos. It's like, what the heck is this? There's chemicals, there's all sorts of stuff in there. But then an hour later, it's no fault of your own. You're hungry again because you got your drug of choice, the food, the sugar, the carbs, and you're eating it again. All that energy throughout the day. It's like, I realized on carnivore, no wonder I'd come home and plop down on the couch. And all of that waste too, all of that stuff we were putting in our bodies, the sleeve of Oreos, the Doritos, even the vegetables, it all would go in one end, not to be indelicate, right out the other. All of the money we would work so hard for to fill that grocery cart up with waste, that would just be waste in, waste out. And then the toll it would take on our bodies. We don't have that toll anymore because you probably eat once or twice a day now. Your digestive system's like, thank God, like this is how it's been since the start of time. I could take a break now. And you have this excess energy, excess brain power, cognitive ability, time to focus on gratitude and expanding your brain and reading and just living a better, happier life. You have the energy to do it now, it's incredible. It's also humbling because then you look around in the world and you realize the majority of people aren't doing this, but that's how it should be. That's how it is for every other species on the planet. And that's how it should be for humans too, if they just stop poisoning themselves and eating this highly inflammatory food over and over again.
It's highly important. Everything that you had said on the show here, it's perfect. People just need to make that conscious choice of they got to put themselves first. I know it sounds selfish and whatnot, but in order to help someone else, you got to help yourself primarily. So with that, Kerry, I am humbled by this opportunity of speaking to you. And hopefully this won't be the last time. Again, on the description, I'm going to have all of your information out there. Guys, go on to Kerry's channel, Homestead How. It is life-changing. Kerry, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too. Later.
Quarterback, Ken O'Brien of California Davis. Just 14 that first time, now going long. They got a wide open man, and he makes the catch. It's Braylon Edwards taking off. Braylon Edwards will take it home for the touchdown. 80.
First down in San Diego territory at the 47-yard line. Big draw. And Pennington going for 6. Deep down.